definitely something someone says as they go live. We are live. All right. We are live. We are live. All right. This is Heat Map Fantasy Sports. I'm not wearing, I'm Doug, by the way, at Bankster17, and Gutta will be joining us in a second at the Big Gutta over on Twitter. Come check out our Twitter page, my Twitter page at Bankster17. $3.99 a week gets you access to everything that we do, all the sports content, all the heat maps. We cover it all. NBA, NHL, killing NHL. NFL, doing a great job crushing NFL right now, too. MMA, PGA, soccer, NASCAR. Did I say MMA? Probably said MMA. Tennis, EuroLeague. Brandon and Troy are killing EuroLeague. They're doing really well over there. College sports, everything. $3.99 a week gets you access to everything. That we do. Link in Twitter profile to sign up. Join us. Be a part of the team. Come check everything out at Heat Map Fantasy Sports. Almost called it Bankster DFS, which we are not anymore. We are Heat Map Fantasy Sports. Also, while you're here, like, share, subscribe, and come check us out. We're going to be live most likely Friday night next week for I haven't told anyone on the team yet, though Gutta and I discussed it, a double sport feature. Friday night, 6 o'clock Eastern, leading up to NHL Lock. I'm going to try to get Sean and or Topher to come on with me. If not, I'll just ramble about hockey for an hour, and then Gutta and I will talk about next Saturday, Christmas Eve slate, next Friday night, 7 o'clock. It's sort of in the works, but it's there. And Gutta, welcome to Sunday. It is Sunday, right? Like, I'm totally screwed up. It's a snow day at school on Friday, and football yesterday, and football today, and football tomorrow, and football and Christmas next week. I'm totally thrown off, man. So
yeah, it's
Sunday, right?
I can confirm it is Sunday.
Whew, all right, ready for some football. And Gutta and I discussed this off air. This Chiefs hat is not because I'm a Chiefs fan or any subliminal messages about today. My hair was a mess. I needed a hat. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to grab my autographed Andre Rison Chiefs hat, and that's what we're going to wear. I am a massive Andre Rison fan. So all-time favorite player, believe it or not. Have jersey signed, hat signed, action figures, and probably 1,000 Andre Rison cards because I have a problem. I used to collect them all the time. Look at that. Andre Rison, but he's not on the slate today. On the slate today are 10 games, about 7 of them, which are dog shit. This is a terrible slate, Gutta. Like, it is. I'm not playing heavy at all today. I'm not playing cash. Though I think cash lineup's fairly easy to get to today. And I'm playing very little GPP because there is one lineup I kind of like and not a lot of variations. Like, I just don't see myself getting to a lot of these games. So I'm just kind of living in the Dallas, Jacksonville, Houston, Kansas City. Kansas City. And a little bit of Philly, and then of course the Chargers and the Titans because I'm a chalk donkey, so I'm gonna ride that. So, like, this week's weird, right? Like, I'm not wrong, am I, Gutta?
No, you're not. It's a very weird week. It's definitely difficult. There's no like easy place to gravitate towards, I would say. Ownership is concentrated pretty interesting this week. Like, you've got some heavy ownership on quarterbacks, but their complementary pieces are not catching as much ownership. Like, so it's definitely a weird week, but I think there's some room for success here. There are some solid matchups for guys. It's just, a little uncomfortable building, but sometimes that's the biggest advantage you can find is when it's uncomfortable. That sometimes means it can be good.
We have said that many a time, have we not? Success is uncomfortable, so maybe we do get a little uncomfortable this week. But, like, I don't know. I was building cash, right? So I've got the article up for this week, and we'll do a quick cash conversation. I can't wear this hat anymore. I don't care how bad my hair looks. It looks fine. I can't. It's just so uncomfortable. So cash, I did not consider another quarterback outside of Justin Herbert this week. I just think he's in such a great spot at $7,200 with Tennessee being terrible against the pass and then most of their secondary being out. He's been over 20 points 4 straight weeks. Volume's insane, and he's actually gotten a little unlucky with touchdowns with only one each of the last 2 weeks. Like, is there another quarterback in cash, or am I on here, or is there another quarterback I should be looking at if I were to play cash?
I mean, I think the other quarterback you have to consider is Jalen Hurts. He's the highest priced guy, so it's always difficult. But with the way that he's playing and the matchup that he gets, I just think that there's very strong consideration there. And he's got such a great floor with the rushing, and quite frankly, if they're inside the 5 or the 10-yard line, he's as good a chance to score the touchdown as Miles Sanders is at this point, or anybody else on the team realistically. So I think he's in a really good spot there. But outside of Hurts, I don't think there's anybody else you want to, outside of Hurts and Herbert, I should say. I don't think there's anybody else you even want to consider, because there's no other kind of safe way to go in cash, I would say.
Yeah, I think that, Hurts is pretty damn solid too. He always gets there, and he's pretty easy to get to this week too. I would think if Mike White was on the slate, if he wasn't out, he'd be a guy I would have looked to against Detroit, because their secondary is still really bad. But I'm not using Zach Wilson. Yeah, it's dumb. Mike White would have been a guy to consider because his volume has been so high, but he's not there. So it's like, yeah. And I don't think we can go to Fields this week. He should run, but I got this. I think Philly just shuts him down this week. I think he could get you 20 points, but I just think the upside's there with Herbert. And plus, Herbert's going to carry the ownership, so you might as well just eat that one because he's in such a great spot. It's not like you're reaching. $7,200 is too cheap for Herbert, I think, this week too. Running back, I actually think I do like Derrick Henry at running back, but you know how I feel about Henry and cash in general. I'm not a huge fan of going there. The target volume has been steady, about three or so per game, which is good, but he's still really touchdown dependent. And while this is a great matchup, I'm going elsewhere for Tennessee exposure, and I'm going back to Okonkwo this week. I had him last week. 16 targets over the last 3 weeks. Chargers aren't great against the tight end. He's with Treylon Burks out. He is their de facto wide receiver one. He's definitely their biggest downfield threat. I know it sounds crazy, but he has 40-yard reception or 30-yard reception in 4 of 6 games. Like he is actually a very athletic tight end. And they really like him. And so I do think that he's the guy I'm using, and I'm not going to overstack this game. So I don't like Eckler at that price, and I just don't want to spend $8,000 for Jacobs. So I'm going further down. I went with Connor and Pacheco, but I think you can make an argument for Tony Pollard. Though at $7,000, it's a little pricey given his snap share, but he just keeps doing it every single week. It's not the best matchup. It's all right, but it's like, I don't know. I could see Dallas passing more. Kamara is going to be popular this week against a pretty bad Atlanta, but I don't trust his usage. I love Miles Sanders this week, but I definitely think he's more of a tournament play given his lack of upside in the passing game. But 17, 144, and 2 touchdowns is in play this week. And so that leaves me with James Conner, who should see all handle, even though Denver's got a good defense. They're not great against the rush, but 5 to 7 targets, 15 to 20 carries. And Kyler Murray is not going to be stealing any of his touches. The dude's been over 20 points in 3 of the last 4 weeks. He's one of the better goal line backs in the league. So I think at 6,900, he's pretty safe. And then Pacheco, we've seen the targets increase over the last 3 weeks, last 4 weeks from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. I don't think he's going to go above 3 here, but we've seen the carries, 13 or more carries each of the last 5 weeks against just a terrible run defense at Houston at $5,900. He makes sense. Zonovan Knight's in play. He should see some work for the Jets as he has been, but none of these running backs stand out in terms of they're going to completely explode, but they're all playable. Do you have a preference for cash running backs this week?
No, I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of where you are with it. Connor does make a ton of sense. For all the reasons you outlined, also to the 3 weeks that McCoy's been under center, Connor finishes the RB2, the RB15, and the RB6 on those weeks. So I think Connor has a great floor and a great skilling here with that. I think Pacheco makes a lot of sense as well. It should be, Kansas City is showing their willingness to run it a little more, and the running has been mainly Pacheco. McKinnon, does see very equal snaps, but McKinnon really is more of the passing back. And unlike last week, the weird way that game went, I don't think they'll be as pass heavy towards McKinnon at least this week. And then there's a lot of ownership going towards Zonovan Knight because of his salary saving and all that. I think that's a little too risky for cash, though. The Lions' run defense has been a little bit better lately. They're still not great, but I just think people are assuming the Jets are going to run a ton with Zach Wilson back there. But if the Jets play a little too conservative and they get caught off guard, I mean, the Lions' offense is good. I mean, we've talked about the splits on Jared Goff and how bad he is on the road. But I just think if the Jets play a little too conservative, that could backfire on them. So I think that adds a little risk to tonight. It's just too risky for cash despite the ownership.
I do think that some people are going to get on Latavius Murray too, given that Boone just went on the IR, so he's really the only game in town. But like, what are you going to get out of Latavius Murray? Like, he could go for 125 and 2 touchdowns today, but like, all these running backs are kind of just like Connor feels the safest and Pacheco's in the best spot. Like, this is why I'm not playing cash though, because it's like it's easy to identify who the guys should be, but none of them are I feel great about this spot. I feel the same way about wide receiver outside Keenan Allen. Like, Keenan Allen to me was the first person I locked into my lineup this week at $6,800, 14 targets each of the last 2 weeks against a pass funnel defense. This was an absolutely easy play. Now, we always talked about Keenan Allen's ceiling. And probably in tournaments, if I had to just pick one, it would be Mike Williams. But in a cash game with a floor, I mean, you've got yourself maybe a 10-target floor. I mean, he could go 8 for 90, 8 for 80. I mean, 16, 18-point floor for this price is not terrible, especially with the top-end receivers. None of them are really in great cash spots. Adams could be a play for tournaments. I love tournaments. A.J. Brown, I mean, he's not getting the targets. It's Devonta Smith who's more of a cash play to me. Amon-Ra, definitely not against Sauce or whoever they want to be against. I just don't like the Lions on the road. Hopkins, no. I don't think Dallas is. I don't know. Lamb is just. I'm not feeling it. Kirk is going to have a pretty difficult matchup against the Cowboys. This is more of a Zay Jones game. Olave has got Dalton thrown to him. Like, it's just the top end guys are just like, bleh. So where are we going to find our people? Well, in this year in the lineup, I like Godwin because the target volume has been so high. 8 or more targets in like every game he plays. The guy's just a target monster. Yep. And it's not the worst matchup, and Tampa should be throwing. And I like Devonta Smith. He's just, since Goddard has gone out, he's had 8 or more targets in every single game, and he's hitting 13. And we need 18 to get there for value for Devonta Smith, and I think that's very reasonable in this matchup. And at $6,400, he makes just a lot of sense. Jerry Jeudy's kind of in play. Garrett Wilson was until Zach Wilson got named the starter. It's like they're still but none of them, I just don't feel overly enthusiastic about them. Zay Jones is fine. He should get a ton of targets. I think he's a really solid play at $4,900. He needs about 15 points, and he's got there 3 of the last 4 weeks. And Chris Moore, people are going to try to go out there and tell you Chris Moore is not a great play this week, but who else are they going to throw to? I like Amari Rodgers for tournaments. Amari Rodgers in tournaments, but in cash, I mean, we've seen what happens when Brandon Cooks is out. Chris Moore, 6 targets, 7 targets, 11 targets. He does get targets, and this is a game Houston's going to have to throw. And yep. Kansas City can be thrown on a little bit. So at $4,200, he makes sense for a cash lineup. Like, again, am I thrilled? No, but am I going to use these guys in cash? If I'm playing cash, I mean, I think that's where you got to go. Am I missing anyone in cash? Am I wrong about the high-end players? You're head out for cash this week in terms of wide receiver, Gutta.
Wide receiver, yeah. I mean, pretty similar too. I don't think none of the high-end guys are in like smash spots where they can give you the points you need for their salary. I mean, maybe the closest one is A.J. Brown, given the soft matchup. But again, at $8,000, it's pretty easy for Philly to spread that production around because Chicago can be beat in all areas. So to expect 25 points from A.J. Brown, that's a difficult get this week. It's tough there from the cash end. And then I don't think there's anybody above Keenan Allen that I would even really consider there. I'm a little different than you on the Jacksonville side. I think Kirk sets up actually better than Zay Jones this week because the Cowboys have more issues in the slot. And I don't think Diggs is going to shadow Kirk and move into the slot and all that. So I think it sets up a little bit better for Kirk. Jones is set up well also, but I think if you were looking at that area in cash, I'd probably prefer Kirk over Jones, I think he's a solid play there if you wanted to go it. But for the extra $100, I'd much rather have Chris Godwin. There's much more safety there, especially with Mike Hilton being out for the Bengals. That's going to be huge because Hilton's their slot corner, so Godwin's really facing a backup this week. It's just going to be a monster advantage for him.
Yeah, and again, he hasn't really done it much this year in terms of big explosive games, but that floor is there and the target volume's there with Godwin. Like, again, am I jazzed about this cash lineup, about these receivers? Not really, other than Keenan Allen. I'm not really overly jazzed, but I think they all make sense in where they're at. In tight end, like, because we can spend down at a lot of places, I do think Travis Kelce is in play in cash, but it just, this price point, I just think it's a lot of money to spend for him this week, especially because he's only had 4 receptions each of the last 3 weeks. The target volume's down a little bit, and he really hasn't gotten there in a while. He's gotten there one time in the last month. So it's tough to really trust him in cash. Fine for tournaments, but I'm not going there. I do think Dalton Schultz makes a lot of sense in cash. If you want to spend up a little bit, the target volume's definitely there for him. Prescott loves him. Gerald Everett is fine for cash. Tennessee's terrible. But again, we're not going to use multiple Chargers receivers, and you're already using Keenan Allen to tournaments. Dulcich makes sense, bless you, because Arizona is just awful. Like, the second best tight end in the league is whoever's facing Arizona, and Dulcich does get the targets, even with Brett Rippon there at 3,600. I do think if you have the 500, he's worth the play. But for me, it's Okonkwo again. He just has as much upside as any tight end on the slate, not named Kelce. He's got the downfield ability in a game that they should have to throw. And without their top receiver, I just think he's the guy to play this week. And I think they know that in Tennessee. You going anywhere else in tight end this week, or is it, but did I kind of hit the big names for you?
No, that's it. Especially in cash, there's no reason why you shouldn't use Okonkwo. I mean, again, unless you want to take a little less ownership. Okonkwo is probably going to be the top owned guy. It's going to be him or Kelce this week. And Dulcich will fall probably at third. So if you wanted a little less ownership and had a couple bucks or building a little differently, I think Dulcich is fine there. He did get 9 targets when Rippon started earlier this year. So he'll probably see enough volume, especially with really him and Judy, the only 2 healthy pass catchers in town for Denver this week. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I don't think you have to go anywhere but Okonkwo realistically, especially in cash. Because also, too, the Chargers are struggling against the tight ends this year. They're like, it's funny, right? It's funny how sometimes numbers break down. They're middle of the pack against tight ends from a points per game standpoint because they haven't given up a lot of catches, but they've given up the 7th most yards, and they're giving up like almost 15 yards a catch to tight ends, and that's actually perfect for what Okonkwo's type of style is. So it could be one of those games. Okonkwo maybe only gets 3 catches, but he goes for 75 yards. It could kind of distribute a little funky there, but I think he makes the most sense far and away.
Yes. And defensively, you're going Denver. Everyone's going Denver against Colt McCoy. Denver's got a good defense. They've given up like 20 points or more in real life points, like 2 or 3 times all year. They've been a great defense. Like, they've been great defense. They're not giving up a ton of yards. They score points. They get in the backfield. They force turnovers. Surtain is great. There's no reason not to go Denver if you can afford them. If you had to spend down, I do like Jacksonville a little bit because they can get in the backfield, but I don't think we have to go that cheap. I just think a New England for tournaments is always a fun play, and the Lions, I think, for tournaments as well against Zach Wilson, but and Carolina and Pittsburgh, like, you could spend up, but like, why? Spend down. I spent up last week. It was dumb. Don't do that. Spend down on defense and cash. Like, don't be dumb like me. I needed Gutta here to set me straight. He wasn't here, and I totally fell off a cliff there. So like this, if I were playing cash, and you never know, I may end up throwing some lineups into cash just to see, because I like this lineup. I've kind of stuck with this lineup all week, and I feel really good about where I'm at with it, but like, not jazzed about this lineup. And so I don't know. I just think there's a more tournament week. It's a light week overall for me. I'll wait for something better to come along next week. Maybe, hopefully we got some better matchups. I'm just not there. I'm not overly enthused about the prices. I don't love the values as much. Zonovan Knight's great. You got a value in Zonovan Knight at 5,300, but like, what's his real upside? What's in a tournament, right? Like, what's his upside? And we'll talk about that when we get to tournaments. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a path, and if you play cash pretty regularly, there are definitely plays there. It's a pretty tight player pool for it. There's not a ton of decisions to make, but no one's going to have these decisions. So therefore, you're going to be pretty much playing against, you got to have a perfect lineup, and you're playing against optos in this case. There's just very tight player pool. So I think it's going to be a struggle a bit. All right, it's that time to. Oh, my wife just brought me something. Last time she brought me something, it had dairy in it, so that got me a little. I couldn't eat it. This time she got me. Oh, hell yeah! Like a pistachio cinnamon roll. Oh, daddy, she knows me. So I married that woman. All right, it's that time to go check some inactives. So let's get there. Let's check inactives.
I guess I'm trying to think. So I guess for the early games, I don't think there's too much we're watching. I think the big ones, I guess New Orleans, Juwan Johnson, just in case. I kind of like him.
You don't like, but still, it's like Trayvon Walker's out for Jacksonville. That will probably help Dallas quite a bit. Oh no, T.Y. Hilton is inactive this week. I have to change him. I used him in a showdown. Oh man, I was hoping he'd get like a nice long throw. That's good for Gallup though. I do think that helps Gallup and Noah Brown. Noah Brown is very usable. Corey Davis out for the Jets, as is James Robinson, as is Quinnen Williams, which we knew. Corey Davis being out, I don't know. I'm just not enthused about the Jets passing game today at all. Lawrence is active, which is good. Thank goodness. Oh, I'm so upset about T.Y. Hilton. You have no idea. I'm so proud of myself for using him. I gotta go freaking change my lineup. I hate changing lineups. Do you know how obnoxious that is? And I have like no money, and so T.Y. Hilton $800. Well, $30. All right, we'll use Agnew. Okay, no one cares about my lineup changes. Let's go. Keep going. Let's find some more. Oh.
I mean, if you were really, really digging deep for receiver help, N'Keal Harry and Claypool are inactive for Chicago, so that maybe boosts Dante Pettis, I guess.
Yeah, you got to be desperate. Kadarius Toney active, so that just muddles things more for Kansas City. We'll talk later how Kansas City is going to look for tournaments, but it doesn't involve wide receivers, I don't believe.
Yeah.
The Saints only have 2 running backs active today, so that means one of 2 things is going to happen. It's just Alvin Kamara and David Johnson. So either Alvin Kamara is going to get fed, which does make him a little more intriguing for
Alvin Kamara, or like the David Johnson.
Yeah, that David Johnson.
Oh my God.
Johnson. Or so either Kamara gets fed today, or
Taysom Hill day.
My best ball teams are going to be very happy with the Taysom Hill. Oh, Taysom, baby. Just be ready to curse Taysom Hill today. Like, that's what's going to happen. I'm not saying you should play him. I'm saying just be ready. Just be ready for a really unhappy day with if you are using if you're using Kamara. You should play Kamara. He's very cash viable, but just be ready. It's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. God,
that sounds about right.
Oh, son of a biscuit. All right, let's there's really nothing we're talking about in terms of inactives. I'm not even going to post that, so let's just keep the scroll on the bottom. Let's talk about tournaments, Gutta. Let's see if we can roll through pretty quickly today. There's not a lot to talk about, so I am going to go in and out on the camera because no one wants to watch me eat my thing, but it's warm and I want to eat it while it's warm. So talk to me a little about Arizona and New Orleans.
Atlanta, New Orleans. See, you're already distracted by your food. I kind of like New Orleans here, actually. I mean, we talked about Kamara. He's going to be widely popular, and Kamara's a fine play and everything. Atlanta, terrible run defense and all, but I kind of like Andy Dalton here a little bit. He's a little sneaky. He's again, Atlanta's got a tough defense. I should say not tough, a bad defense. They are where is it? DVOA 29th ranked pass defense, which is pretty appealing. And Dalton Dalton's given us 5x on this price twice this year. He does have a little bit, a little upside there, a little bit of a ceiling. And if this becomes much more of a passing game, I think, Dalton and Olave have a really good shot here. And Juwan Johnson as well, I think has a nice opportunity. The Falcons do struggle a bit against the tight ends. They've given up quite a bit of points to them over the course of the year. They've allowed 72 catches, which is the fourth most in the NFL. And Juwan Johnson's a little bit of a he gets some targets there. He's kind of the de facto number 2 in a sense, because the Saints are just extraordinarily banged up. And I think you can even play Kamara in there as the stack and hoping that Kamara gets some extra catches there. But I do like Dalton with Olave and Johnson. I think it's a little sneaky. If you're playing three entry max contests, I think Dalton maybe makes a little sense as like a more contrarian play. And Dalton's very live in large field tournaments, I think, because he's got a good chance for 25 to 30 points today if everything sort of breaks right. And the Saints actually have a 24-point implied team total, which on this slate is like the fifth highest, surprisingly enough. We don't have a ton of teams, but they're like the fifth or sixth highest on a slate of 20 teams. That's up there. That's a top percentile. So it's interesting to look at, I think.
Saints defense in play with Desmond Ridder starting. Desmond Ridder in play with Desmond Ridder starting, or are we just completely off Atlanta?
I wouldn't touch Atlanta. I don't trust it. I have no idea what the hell Ridder's going to look like. As I kind of wrote, I would assume their play calling or their approach doesn't change much, and they're going to still continue to be run heavy and everything. So I just don't know what Ridder may bring to the table this week, because I believe as well, there's been a lot of conflicting things, but I think this was more of Mariota kind of giving up and not wanting to play anymore versus Atlanta thinking Ridder was ready to start. So I think they're going to try to hide him as much as possible. And I can't trust anything on Atlanta.
No, I'm with you. For those that are hanging out in the chat, please do not hesitate to drop questions. We'd love to answer them for you. And, a little good morning to you guys as well if you're coming in late. Pittsburgh, Carolina. I like the Carolina defense in this one. Not sure I like anyone else. What are your thoughts on this game?
Carolina defense is intriguing. Mitch Trubisky there. That's going to be fun. And I'm also seeing on that if Trubisky struggles, they're not going to hesitate to go to Rudolph, which, Mason Rudolph is, I don't think, much better. I think Rudolph should be starting just because we've already seen Trubisky this year and we know what he's going to bring. But yeah, I think Panthers defense is solid. I kind of like both running backs here. Harris has been getting a lot more work of late, and we know Foreman's upside, and we've seen what he can do. And he's probably good for 15 to 20 carries in a game that should be close. I don't think anybody really jumps ahead anything significantly, or at least not the Steelers. So I think Foreman makes for an interesting salary-saving option, and actually probably a pretty solid pivot off a night.
Yeah, I was going to say he's probably a good pivot off of Bam Knight. I'm not good to talk about much else with this game. How about Philly, Chicago? I like this running through games. And this is what I did last week. I love just bang, bang, bang. It's great. Philly, Chicago. There can't be anything too much on the Chicago side. You're like, maybe else, but where are you going with maybe Montgomery? Maybe? Where are you going Philly on this one, too?
Montgomery I wouldn't touch. There's other guys in that price area I like a little better. The Chicago side, if you're playing anything, it's just Cole Kmet, because he's easily the number one target there, and he with this hot streak that Fields has been on since he's kind of really turned things around. Kmet's really has worked out really, really well for it. He's kind of been leading them in targets and stuff. I think Fields is a great way to play this game as well, because he does give you the same upside Hurts has. It is a very tough matchup. But if this does turn into a back and forth, if Philly builds a big lead, it's going to be great for Fields as well. And then the Philly side, you can play it, I think, in a multitude of ways. Now with Goddard out, that brings a lot more potential to Devontae Smith and even Quez Watkins, I think. A.J. Brown, obviously, in play. And I do think, too, I think you can stack Hurts with Miles Sanders and just kind of run this game that way. If this game kind of plays out the way that things went last week, Hurts got you there. None of the passers did, and Miles Sanders got there as well. And I think the Eagles are going to be can be a little run heavy here. And Hurts can give you the numbers without having a monster passing day. And if he does, and he doesn't get any of the receivers there, you very well could see Hurts and Sanders combined for a strong day. So it'll be very interesting to see which way this does play out for Philly. But I think I do think there's a multitude of ways you can play it, and not to overlook the Hurts Sanders idea.
I haven't run it out yet, though I may if I'm building some last minute lineups. I do like the idea of like a Fields, Kmet, Sanders stack for this game. I think that's it to go. What about on this Kansas City Houston game? We've already talked about Chris Moore and Amari Rodgers. I spoke about as a potential tournament play. How are you looking at this game? I mean, I know every time there's the Kansas City, it's going to be a blowout. Let's not play the passing game. And then, 5 touchdowns later, you're like, why didn't I do that? So not you, but like we know better. But like, is it possible that's where they're going with this? Or like, where's this game going? Like, how do you like it?
So I mean, that type of narrative has definitely worked in the past, but that's also kind of coincided with Kansas City being overlooked on the slate as well. I mean, the way that things are currently trending, I mean, Mahomes is even, if not slightly ahead of Hurts for ownership. Kelsey's far and away the top. He's the second owned tight end, but at his salary, that's a big deal. As high owned as Kelsey's going to be, and all that's going to coincide with Mahomes stacks. And then Juju's picked up a little steam overnight as well. He was coming in like mid-single digits. He's now up to double-digit ownership. So he's picked up a little steam there as well. So I think this Kansas City passing game is going to be a little more popular than I initially thought earlier in the week, and that actually could be really good for Pacheco. Pacheco's coming in a little lower owned now. He's under 10% now. I think it's a really great spot for him. And Pacheco may be the better way to play this game now, just with the way things are setting up. He's got 15 plus carries in 3 of his last 5. The past 2 weeks he had 13 and 14 carries. I mean, they're not afraid to give this kid the carries if the game sets for it. And I think this one very much does. So, Pacheco may end up being the better way to play this game with the way the ownership is starting to move around the Kansas City pass offense.
Dad joke time. Would it be wise to play Juju with Hanukkah tomorrow? Is there Hanukkah narrative? No. No Hanukkah narrative. Okay. Perhaps not. All right. I digress.
I can't confirm or deny if Juju celebrates Hanukkah, so I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he does not. But, hey, happy Hanukkah to all that observe. And, hey, maybe you do play the Smith-Schuster narrative. Am I crazy for playing this game? Pacheco, McKinnon, Chiefs defense. Like, that's how I really like playing this game. I have done my Tennessee Charger stack because that's pretty much where my head goes to every time I turn on DraftKings. I'm like, let's do more Tennessee Chargers lineups. And then I immediately come over here and I'm like, let's just do Pacheco, McKinnon, Chiefs defense, and let's knock this baby out. Is that dumb?
Yeah, I don't think
dumb. It's fine to call me dumb. I don't.
Yeah, I try to I try to be polite, but yeah, I don't think there's a way that both Pacheco and McKinnon can hit in this game. I don't think Houston's going to do enough on offense to give enough steam to both of those players. I mean, unless, listen, if McKinnon gets a 60-yard touchdown again like last week, then sure, maybe both can get there. I just don't think there's going to be enough. I don't think there's going to be enough happening for both McKinnon and Pacheco to get there. And I do lean more on the Pacheco side.
Yeah, I do have more Pacheco, but again, McKinnon trending to look under 5%. I think that is.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
Just quick thought.
I was going to say this. Yeah, I was going to say this time last year, McKinnon kind of came out from obscurity and really took over the backfield. But the difference too is Pacheco looks a lot better than Edwards-Helaire was looking this time last year, and frankly, he's a little bit of a better runner for what they need.
Quick 1 second thought on Amari Rodgers. Playable, not playable? As a punt.
Definitely playable. Definitely playable.
I think there's some really good punts this week, honestly. I think there's a couple of punts across the league that are going to make it very easy to do whatever you want in your lineups. And we're getting to some more in a minute. I agree with Amari Rodgers. I like him. Dallas Jacksonville. This should be a pretty popular game. Both offenses are playing well. How do you like to play this game?
I like it a little better from the Dallas side. And it's fairly simple. I mean, I think the easiest way to play it is Dak, Lamb, and Schultz. But if you want to get a little more creative, or you want to spend up elsewhere because CeeDee Lamb maybe lacks the ceiling that we're really looking for unless he's getting multiple touchdowns. He doesn't quite get there on volume. Like you look at that Giants game. He went 6 for 106. He got you 20 points that week. The following week he went 5 for 71 and a touchdown, got you 20 points. 20 points is fine, but unless he's getting multiple touchdowns like that Green Bay game he went off, he really over his career doesn't quite get there. So unless you're expecting just the real blow up game and all the volume kind of goes to Lamb, maybe you play it Gallup and Schultz. I love Christian Kirk on the Jacksonville end. And I do think too, I think Etienne and Pollard are both very much in play. Pollard is carrying really low ownership. His price is a little tough now, up to 7,100, but he sees enough volume, and we know the ceiling that he possesses with the big play potential. And Travis Etienne as well. I think Etienne is very much in play also. The Cowboys have been solid against running backs, but they're not great. They've allowed a lot of rushing yards. I think it's the 10th or 11th most rushing yards to running backs in the league, which is pretty extraordinary when you look at the points they've allowed to running backs, because they haven't allowed a ton of catches, and they haven't allowed many touchdowns to running backs either. The defense has been pretty strong with that, so it's pretty interesting there because all the touchdowns really the Cowboys have allowed through the air. So I do think that Etienne can be in has a really strong chance here of success despite the sort of difficult looking matchup.
I love stacking this game from the Jaguar side. Sorry, my attention I was looking at the World Cup. I have a same game parlay that looks like it may be potentially hitting, so I'm very excited about that. I love this game from the Jacksonville side. I just think Trevor Lawrence is playing out of his mind right now. I'm not really into the Dallas passing game too much. I just think the volume is really good for him, and we're starting to see what Trevor Lawrence can do, and it's really, really cheap to stack them. And I love the Gallup Schultz stack. I agree that CeeDee Lamb does like that ceiling, and it's so cheap to go with like Zay Jones, Michael Gallup, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz. Even if you throw in Christian Kirk, I'm not really buying into the Evan Ingram thing. Like, it was a good week last week, but he's not a consistent player. So yeah, I like this game. Is probably my second favorite game to stack on the slate. It's very should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, this game. Detroit and the Jets. We talked briefly, or maybe not so briefly, about this game. Where is your head at with this game here for tournaments?
Tough. I mean, I've got a little Wilson and Moore sprinkled in, just because it is such a good matchup. I don't know what the hell Zach Wilson's going to bring here. I don't know if maybe the reality set in for him and he's going to be a little more decisive, or if we're going to see the same thing that we saw, a couple weeks ago and he's just useless. But yeah, I think with Wilson and Moore, there is some upside because the volume should be pretty much to them too. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I suppose, is in play a little bit because of the volume, and the Jets are a little weaker in the slot than the outside. But I'm not really in love with anything here. I think the defenses are a good way to play it. I think that the Jets defense is a strong play this week if you want to come off of the Broncos a little bit and pay a little more. But other than that, yeah, I'm not overly excited here. Even, night, maybe we'll see enough volume, but I'm not, overly thrilled about it either.
Yeah. I think this could be that game that people are going to be very let down by. If people are into this game, this could be such a letdown game. I could see this being like 13-6 or something like stupid. It could just be, I don't know. good defense in the Jets, terrible offense with Zach Wilson there, and Detroit does just, but they don't do enough on the road. Like, I don't know, could be a really ugly freaking game. Thank goodness for red zone, so I don't have to watch that stinker from beginning to end. Arizona Denver. Speaking of stinkers, I mean, it's the Colt McCoy Brett Rippon matchup we all have been waiting for since the schedule was announced in March. I mean, this is just, or whenever the hell the schedule was announced, May, whatever it was. Like, oh my goodness, I'm like, dude, week 15, Colt McCoy, Brett Rippon, best ball frenzy right here. Fucking awful. Do you like anything in this game? Like, we talked about Connor. Like, he's fine. Like, I need to get more James Conner in my lineup in terms of tournaments. But, like, Davis Murray? Dulcich, right? Dulcich, Connor could be your mini stack. But, like,
Dulcich, Connor. I like Judy as well. I think Judy will see enough volume to do something. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I mean, Judy, I'll probably have a lighter amount, but I would say the more focus is Connor and Dulcich. And the Broncos defense, but just, I've touched on this in other slates where we see like monster defense chalk. Just because the variance is so crazy. I mean, the Broncos aren't going to get you negative points, but everybody's just assuming that, well, Colt McCoy's in there, so the Broncos are going to put up 20 points. The easiest thing in tournaments to do is pivot off of the chalk defense because literally anything can happen with defenses. I wouldn't go 100% Broncos defense, but yeah, I mean, just the way that I look at it.
Yeah, I'm actually playing very little Broncos defense in tournaments for that very reason. I think it's just easy to get up to the Panthers or the Jets or just go down to Jacksonville or whatever.
Patriots.
Did I say Patriots?
No.
Yeah, I said Jets. I meant Patriots. I said Jets. I meant Patriots. Patriots and Panthers. Yes. No, really like the Patriots. And speaking of, that should be the next game on our slate. New England, Las Vegas. Another shot for a former Belichick assistant to go up against Hill. That does not usually work out well for the assistants unless it's was it Brian Flores kept beating them. Other than that, like no one can beat Belichick. So can McDaniels? Is this another destined to be low scoring and ugly?
Probably a little ugly, but so I've built a couple lineups with Stevenson in there just because. I mean, the Patriots backfield is a little decimated right now. So if Stevenson does play, I think he'll probably get his normal volume workload. But if not, I mean, it's an easy pivot just to go down to Connor. I mean, Connor's going to carry a bit more ownership, so I'm not crazy about it, but it's at least an easy swap if Stevenson is out or there's any word that he's going to be a little extra limited. Or you just kind of prepare yourself. You get a 2v2 and, go from Stevenson to Jacobs and then, have your other swap figured out elsewhere. And then, I kind of like Jacobs a little bit here as well. I think, ownership is projecting high for him, but I don't buy it at all. I think he's going to come in pretty low owned. So I think Jacobs is a solid play that could be a little overlooked. And I think, too, if you're playing a large field tournament, you may want to give a little look to Mac Jones and his receivers. Just because, if Stevenson isn't his full self or isn't going to get his normal workload, I think it's going to be a little bit of a heavier passing game potentially for the for the Patriots. And the Raiders struggle as much in the passing game as they do in the run game. Or I would even say they struggle a little more in the passing game than the run game. So, could be a little more pass heavy for New England if that's the case. I mean, these guys are priced so low that, if Jones throws for 3 touchdowns, you might be sitting pretty if you can nail the high priced options that you'll have the room to spend for it.
Week 15, 2022, the time Gutta tried to go up on air. Awesome. Mac Jones. I will say, my favorite spend down option on the slate is in this game, and it's Nelson Aguilar revenge game. Nelson Aguilar does exactly one thing well, and it's catch long touchdown passes. Everything else, like, look, he had 10 targets last week with a long of 13, only caught 5 of them because he's not good at short catches. But with Jacoby Myers expected to play, Hunter Henry in the game, that leaves Aguilar as the deep threat with Parker out. And you know he's going to want it. This is exactly the kind of game that Nelson Aguilar is going to catch a long touchdown. We will discuss my Nelson Aguilar love when we talk about our predictions, our bold prediction for the week. Oh, shoot, I lost Gutta. He's gone. He heard me talk about Nelson Aguilar and he ran away. I would have done the same thing. I love Nelson Aguilar this week. I have too much Nelson Aguilar, so I do need to vary it up a little bit in that $3,400 range, which shockingly, there are many wide receivers in that $3,400 range that make sense. So, or there's a couple at least in that lower range, like Amari Rodgers and Gutta's boy Dante Pettis with N'Keal Harry out. So I've decided if Dante Pettis has a bad game, I'm blaming you for that one because you said his name.
Oh, I'm not recommending Pettis. I just said that he may have some opportunities.
No, I know. No, I know, but you stepped away for a second, so I could say whatever I want. Just like last week, I made predictions on your behalf. This week, I can do the same thing. Just wait until week 18 when you're not here, and week 19 or the wild card when I get to make up Gutta's picks. Also, I can't wait. It's my most fun thing to do because then what are you going to do? You can't argue with me. You're not on the air. You can send me nasty notes later. This is the game, right? Tennessee and the Chargers. This is it, right? Like this is where all of our love is going to fall, or at least all my love is falling into this game. What does Gutta think?
Yeah, I mean, we keep waiting for Herbert's breakout game for the year, right? He's had a disappointing year based on what we expect for him, and yeah, I mean, this is the spot that he should finally give us like that 30-point game. I mean, listen, it's going to be popular, at least from the stacking side. I do like Mike Williams. I think he's one of the better plays this week on the board. Obviously, like every other week, I'm less intrigued by Keenan Allen. Probably the volume will be there, but I don't think the ceiling will. And, the Titans are a little better in the slot than they are out wide. Let's see. I'm going to give you Keenan Allen numbers.
Your hate for Keenan Allen makes me want to play him more every single week, by the way. The more you hate Keenan Allen, the more I want to use him. Even though I agree with everything you say, I still and I love Mike Williams. I'm a huge Mike Williams fan, but, like, I just want to play him just because it's, like, such a safe floor. Such a safe floor. He's like,
yeah, I mean,
you know what you're getting. Like, it's fine. You're fine.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, if Keenan Allen goes for 18, 19 points, yeah, that's great, but that's not, unless he does better than all the other guys priced above him, 18, 19
for a
points.
For a tournament, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Doesn't really get you there, And
I feel you.
I mean, listen, 65% of Allen's targets come out of the slot, and against the Titans, that's not a good thing. They're a little better there. And I like Williams. I like Josh Palmer. I think Palmer is very sneaky here. Even with Allen back, Palmer has not really gone away. He had 6 targets last week. He had 11 2 weeks ago. I think the Raiders game, Williams was still out, but I think he'll get enough volume there, and he can hit some big plays. So I do like Palmer in this spot as well, because I prefer him and the potential upside over where Keenan Allen is. So, and then on the Tennessee side, I mean, it's pretty easy. It's a Conquo. I'm not really interested in any of the receivers with Burks being out. And I also think Henry is an intriguing way to play it as a bring back. There's always a little risk there with Henry as the bring back if the Chargers are putting up points and stuff through the air. But we did see this work out last year with that crazy Charger Browns game where we had a similar type of thing of the way that the game played out, where Herbert and the receivers went nuts, but Nick Chubb was a great bring back play for that week. So I think Henry is very viable in that spot.
I find this week more than any week this year so far, I'm doing a lot of double run backs, and I think Henry Okonkwo is a way to double run back. It's going to be a little bit different, and so that's what I've been doing, is not just this game, but there's a couple games that I've been doing some double run backs, and that's been a little bit I don't know, a little bit unique way to play it. Last game on the slate, and I need to start to warm up to this game. Like I have not warmed up to this game, and I need to. Like I need to get more exposure to Cincinnati, Tampa. This is like that week when I said I'm gonna regret not having Joe Mixon, and he went and had those 5 touchdowns. I'm not saying it's gonna be like that kind of a game, but I will probably regret not having more exposure to this game if I don't get more before kickoff. Am I right for feeling like I need more exposure here?
Yes and no.
I have no exposure though. I have one Burrow lineup. I have like nothing.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, right? Because you look at it from the Tampa Bay spot, right? They're not putting up much points. Their defense is playing solid. It's almost like you look at it, well, Tampa needs the win, like, right? It wouldn't shock you if Tampa goes out and wins 21-17. You don't really I don't really see Cincy coming out and winning like 35-31 type of game. And I don't see Tampa doing that either. So it makes it a little tough. But also, too, I could see Cincy coming out and winning 31-14. Like I could see that type of game happening. So I think this very much goes to, well, it's Joe Burrow, it's Jamar Chase. Like I think any given week, unless it's really bad conditions or whatever it is that it doesn't set up well, I think Cincy exposure just makes sense because of the upside they possess and what they can do. Tampa's defense has cracked occasionally. So I've got a couple of Burrow lineups just because I think it makes sense. And it's very easy, right? Higgins is banged up. Boyd is banged up. They're both expected to play. But, Hurst is out. Burrow's passing. I mean, Chase is probably getting double-digit targets. I don't think that there's –
I agree completely.
There's not much else. So it's very, very easy to stack this game just going, Burrow, Chase, and Godwin as the run back. I mean, it's fairly simple. And I think, too, in a large field tournament, if maybe you want to throw a Brady stack in there just because he's so damn cheap at 5,500, again, I think it's just very easy to play it. It's Brady, Godwin, Chase, and you hope that, Brady has a little bit of a resurrection. He can get to 25 points here, and it works out. But I would just stick that really large field. I wouldn't take that unnecessary risk with Brady because I don't think he's going to even clear 20 points this week.
There are a few things I enjoy more than watching Tom Brady struggle. Like I love it. Like it just makes me happy. But I can't I don't know. I think he's in a good spot this week. So I'm gonna stack this game. I literally just stacked it from the Brady side because now I feel like I've got exposure to it. And I faded Godwin on that stack. I went Evans and Otten because if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose spectacularly. And that's the way to do it. But I got Chase on the
And what's crazy, too, with all these Tampa struggles and everything, they're still going to win their division. They're still going to get a home playoff game. And they're going to win that home playoff game. And everybody's going to say, oh, here comes Brady. It's just inevitable.
And you know what's going to happen? There's going to be an upset in like the first round also. And so they're going to get another home game or a easier road game. They're going to go to Minnesota and they're going to put the hammer onto Minnesota. Then they're going to go into Philly or Philly loses and they're going to freaking host Washington. It's going to be Tampa, Washington in the freaking NFC Championship game. And Brady's going to go to the Super Bowl. And after all these upsets, it's going to be Brady versus the Jets. And I'm going to cry. No, it'll be Brady versus the Patriots. Talk about the worst thing possible. Brady versus Belichick in the Super Bowl. Oh, my God. Book it now. I'm going to go bet Patriots Buccaneers Super Bowl matchup. I'm going to go do that now because I know this is how the world wants to hate me. All right, let's build a lineup today because we haven't done that in a couple weeks. Where do we want to build it? Knowing that I have a ton of Tennessee, Chargers, and Jacksonville, Dallas, and Kansas City, Houston exposure already. Do you want to go with the Andy Dalton make me 6 stack or the Mac Jones stack? Like, I'll let you choose which stack we're rolling today.
Did you say you have a lot of Hurts?
I have 0 Jalen Hurts.
All right, let's do let's do a Hurts Sanders build.
All right. Sometimes you just play the best guy, right? Isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
Are we running it back with Matt, or are we not running it back?
No, I would keep Komet out of it.
Okay. So where do we want to go from here? We want to do the Gutta special with Stevenson and the Patriots defense, and we could always pivot if we have to, or not. I don't care either way. I'm not in love. Or do you want to go Foreman, Carolina? I do like going with the Gutta. Like for this, I always like going with the Gutta running back defense.
Yeah, I would go. I think I'd rather go Foreman, Carolina.
Great, me too. Like significantly more.
Yeah, because also too, what I would like to do as well. I'd like to use ETN and Schultz to see if we can get that to work.
That's not a problem at all. I did want Schultz as our tight end for this lineup, so I'm very happy with where we're going with this. Did not think we'd run ETN on the other side, but seeing as I have 0 ETN, that works for me a lot. Where are we at? 54.
Yeah, I mean we can also. Yeah. So well.
What were we gonna say? What else we could do? What else could we tell me? What else you want to do?
I was just gonna say if we needed to, we could swap Schultz to Gallup if we needed to save, or we can swap ETN to Jones if that will make more sense at wide receiver. But we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, I like that. I love the Schultz part. I don't really want to get rid of the Schultz part.
Yeah, so I guess the question at wide receiver becomes, we're gonna have to spend down on somebody. It just depends how far down we want to go or what we want to do.
Yeah. Do you like Mike? Do you want to go Mike Williams? Since I know you're big on Mike Williams, you're big on him this week, right?
Yeah, I do like Mike Williams. Yeah, we can see. Yeah, we'll see what that brings to us. So I guess the question becomes: do we want to use the chalk of Chris Moore, or do we want to go down to like Aguilar or even Rodgers and get like the real savings?
Yeah, I'd rather down. I mean, Renfro, Aggers, all of it works for any of those work for me. Noah Brown, even do a double Dallas stat. I mean, I think there's just go with Pettis because we have to. Pettis is our I'm just gonna put him in there for a second just to see what it does. That gives us Chris Godwin amount. I'm just saying. It would be almost not okay to not use Pettis at this point, especially since we have a Philly stack. Like I'm going to advocate for Dante Pettis because he should be the number one receiver for the Bears today.
Yeah, well, if we get, let's see, so if we have Aguilar, where does that get us? Let's just
you're so
just for shiggles.
65.
65. What's that? 65.
Just remember what happens when we talk about a guy and don't use him. I'm just saying.
Let's see. That gives us.
If we don't use Pettis in this lineup, I'm going to go bet Pettis for 4 touchdowns today.
All right, go Pettis and Godwin. All right.
Like I don't think I'd be able to contain myself if we did Pettis and he had even if Pettis goes 4 for 50 and a touchdown, 15 points, that's huge for him. And we talked about him. We always make this mistake. We mention a guy, even in joking, we mention a guy, we don't use him, and then he goes off. It's ridiculous. That said, I really love Nelson Aguilar today. All right, what is your one bold or multiple bold predictions? Let's watch me curse too, because I'm going to scream when this tournament's already full. I have to go to a lower tournament. I hate doing that. All right, we'll let that
we're in.
Load up. It said we're in, but I said it last time and we weren't. So it's this guy is full. Go F yourself. It's like, okay. All right. What's your takeaway this week? What's your bold-ish prediction?
Two touchdowns for Mike Williams, 2 touchdowns for Pacheco.
Oh my God. The amount of love I would have for that happening for my Mike Williams Pacheco lineup, which I have a lot of this week, would just be chef's kiss. Nelson Aguilar will score a touchdown greater than 35 yards this week. You can book that, and we'll just go the other route too. We'll just hit both guys we didn't use in this lineup. Amari Rodgers gets 15 points this week. So both Aguilar and Rodgers will go 15 points this week. That's what we'll say. But Aguilar will do it on a 30-yard or longer touchdown, and I think Rodgers gets there on volume, maybe a touchdown. We'll see. A lot of value plays. All right, that's it for this week. Oh my God, we actually got in on a lineup. I can't believe we actually got what I wanted to do for a change. It's amazing. Thank you for joining us. This is it for this week. Of course, we'll be back tonight. I'm confirming. I just got to confirm it with the wife, but I've confirmed with Sean we will be doing a Friday night 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern, NHL live slate leading us into lock. And then Friday night after that, Gutta will pop on and we'll do NFL for Christmas Eve. Have a wonderful week. My name is Doug Shane 17. Check the link in my Twitter profile for information on how to join Heat Map Fantasy Sports. $3.99 a week for everything that we do, all the sports, and we cover them all. That is Michael Guttadero at the Big Gutta. Good luck this week, folks, and we will see you on the flippity.